Hi guys, welcome to day 3 of our Breathwork challenge. Today I'm going to be talking about the relationship between the breath and meditation. So I'm just going to wait for a couple of moments before we get going, allow some people to join me live. If you haven't already, then check out day 1 and day 2. So day 1, I talked about the relationship between breath and the nervous system, and that's a really, really important talk and a really important aspect of breath work. One of the most needed aspects of breath work in society, especially in a more modern society when we are all kind of chronically stressed and tired. And then Rachel yesterday talked about breathing dysfunctions. So she talked about how our body gets into bad habits by practicing bad practices, how that shows up and why that shows up. And that's a really important talk as well. So with both of those 2 days, we had a practice that you could try at home. So give those practices a go as well. So that was day 1 and day 2, and today I'm going to talk about the connection between breath and meditation. So welcome those people who are joining me live. Write a little comment or send a little heart or wave so that I know that you're there. And for those people who are watching the recording afterwards, then watch the whole of this little talk and then also switch to the practice recording, which will be 2 separate recordings. Okay, so let's get into it because this is a really great tool as well. So first of all, let's talk about the primary objectives of meditation. And there are lots of different layers to this, but first and foremost, particularly for people who are starting out with meditation, a lot of the time what we hear is, I can't meditate because my mind's too busy, or I don't have enough time, or I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's really important to know why we're sitting down and meditating, because the biggest misconception is that we're there to try and slow or stop the thoughts or control the thoughts, which is impossible. And so there is no point even trying, and it's also not the goal anyway. So meditation is, first and foremost, it's a great way of calming down the nervous system. And again, if you haven't watched day 1 about the connection between the breath and the nervous system, have a check that out after this lecture. So it helps to calm us down, obviously, because we are sitting still, we are finding a place where we are comfortable. So it helps us to calm the nervous system down. And then also it helps us to bring in focus so that our focus isn't dashing around all the time. For those people who are joining us as well, say a little hi, or send a little love. I love the little love things going up. So bring in focus, because often what we find is that our mind, and especially in today's society with so many stimulants and so many different things for us to watch or social media or to do, is that our focus darts off in all these different directions and it becomes really scattered. So meditation is a great way of just bringing our focus back to center. But then also, as we're meditating, on one of the best and starting blocks is to find something to focus on, which is where the breath comes in. But what we begin to do is we begin to notice that there is a difference between, when we're meditating, there's a difference between the object that we are putting our focus on, let's say the breath, for instance, or it can be the sensations in the body, and the witnesser that is witnessing this. So when it comes to our thoughts, often what happens is that, or pretty much all the time, what happens is that we have a thought and then we're immediately reacting to that thought. That could be going on a whole chain of thoughts or stories, or the thought could be like, I'm feeling comfortable, and I move. So we end up reacting super quickly to our thoughts. And what this means is we're not creating space between, and in psychotherapy call it a reaction gap. You're not creating space between the stimulus that's drawn to you, that's caught your attention, and the reaction that you have to that stimulus. And that can be quite destructive when it comes to behavior or when it comes to our actions. Let's say we are someone that is struggling with anxiety, and we have a thought that makes us anxious, and immediately we start to recoil, or we start to go on anxious thoughts, or maybe we just want to run away and hide, or maybe it's because we talk really quickly, or maybe it's that we do something more destructive, like we go and drink lots of alcohol or something. So what's happened is there's been no gap between that thought that we that made us feel a certain way, or the feelings that we feel in relation to the thought, and the actions that we take. And looking a little closer, there is also no gap between the thought and then the emotions we have. We might have an anxious thought, like, let's say that someone doesn't like being alone. Tonight I might be alone, and then there's emotion of tightness, of like, I don't want to be alone tonight, and I hate being alone. I'm going to go and just find someone to go and spend time with. And our meditation practice allows us to a little bit of space. I'm noticing this thought of not feeling like I want to be alone, and now I'm noticing all these emotions that are coming up as part of it. But I'm realizing that there is a difference between me, the witnesser of those emotions, and the emotions themselves. So where does breathwork come into this? So the breath can be such a great tool, is a great tool for our starting blocks for meditation. Remember, meditation is to help to calm the nervous system down, so we can do the extended exhales, like we can do it as part of our belly breathing, to help to calm the body down. So that's a really good way of at least making us less reactive. So the breath work can be a good starting block, rather than saying to someone, oh, you're feeling anxious, you should just, witness the thoughts that are coming. And if they're not an experienced meditator, that's super challenging. And not only is it really challenging, but it can be really triggering and make us feel like we're failing and not doing a good job, and then we feel more anxious. So breath work is a really great way of physically helping the nervous system to calm down. And then, as well as that, once we're a little calmer, it can be the focus that we place our attention onto. And it's like an anchor. So if you think our focus is always darting off to different directions, it can be that you're multitasking, it can be that whatever thought comes into your mind, your focus goes off that way, goes off to that thought, and then we're off on a tangent about something, or we're down a rabbit hole in our mind. So the breath, as it's always present, it's always with us, can be a really great anchor for our attention. Once we have placed our awareness on that anchor, so the breath, so we watch we're going to do this in our exercise in a bit, but we watch our breath as it naturally comes and goes. What happens is when we are bringing our attention to that focus point, to our anchor, we'll notice that the mind wanders off and we'll completely forget about what we're supposed to be doing. And it will be thinking about what's happened, what we're going to eat for dinner, or whatever it is. And that's totally normal and totally fine. So it's when we notice that, we bring it back to the anchor. So the goal is not to try and anchor and chain the attention to the breath, and to try as hard as we can to not think about anything else, because that is the nature of the mind, and we can never change the nature of the mind. So what it will do, though, is it will help us to give an anchor to differentiate between when our focus is brought into a single point and when it is going off in all different directions, and to give it something to come back to that's not bringing up a lot of emotions, so it's not going to trigger a lot of different thoughts, And it helps to train the mind, or to train our focus to keep coming back to this single point. And in doing this, we begin to create and witness that separation between the witnesser and the way that the mind wanders off. So it becomes our anchor, and in that anchor, we absorb the mind into that focus. And we're also able to discern what is part of that focus, or what is part of our attention going into that focus, and what is all the clutter that's happening on the outside. And we begin to realize that this clutter that's happening on the outside, all the thoughts, all the sensations in the body, they are not inherently who we are. They are not our, they are not the true essence of who we are. Often we think a thought that makes us feel angry, and then we go, I am angry. And we start to attach to these emotions. I am angry. I am sad. Whereas what the meditators will teach us is that you are experiencing anger, and that you're witnessing anger, or you're witnessing sadness. So we start to realize that we are not, our inherent being is not all these changing things. It can't be. It can't be this, those changing things, because there is something that is unchanging in you, that is the same unchanging you from the moment you were born to now. And there was that same you has not changed. You have not morphed into a different you. Your body has changed. Your mind has changed multiple times during the day. Your circumstances and your clothes have changed. And maybe even your conditioning and your behavior has changed. But there is something that is witnessing and present throughout all those changes. And that is that soul is the soul that gets clouded when we're so focused on all the changing things. It's like we have a glass of clear water, and when we wake up, we have a thought, oh shit, what work do I have to do? Boom. There's one drop of black ink into that clear water. It starts to muddle up who we are. And then what am I going to eat? Another drop. What am I going to, that thing that happened yesterday, how am I going to resolve that? Another drop. So this clear picture of who we are, or this clear understanding of who we are that we have in deep sleep, begins to be clouded by all these different thoughts, because we are associating with those thoughts, and we're changing our focus depending on where they all go. So the breath is a great anchor, not only to calm the body down and to give the body something to focus on, but it's with us all the time. So it's that anchor that can help us to place our awareness and place our attention onto. And then we can, from there, we'll witness the mind going off, we bring it back. The mind goes off, we bring it back. And we start to just slowly draw our mind into this object, and create that space and witness that space in between you, the witnesser, and the thoughts that are happening. Now that's all well and good when you're meditating, but how do we use this in our everyday lives? When we start to notice the difference between us, our true nature, and all the sensations that are happening around us, we start to become less reactive in our lives. We are able to witness emotions as they come in for what they are, witness what emotions come up and what thoughts might trigger, but then to take deep breaths and to make decisions based on what's true, rather than reacting to what the stimulus is around us, rather than reacting to anxiety, rather than reacting to anger. So we become a lot calmer in ourselves, but also we can make a lot more true decisions based on what's real, rather than our perception from our thoughts and our sensations and emotions. So there's a quick description of the connection between the breath and meditation, how we can use breath and the breath work as a gateway into meditation. I'm now going to stop the recording, and I'm going to start again with an exercise called breath awareness. So stay online with me here and join me in a moment. You'll see me pop up live again in the group, and then we can practice together, and we can use the breath as a way of tuning into our meditation practice. I'll see you in a second.